we deliver the programs, but I will send the slides out to everybody so that you have that information. So if I don't go through it in detail, then you'll be able to refer back to it. At any point, I'll share my contact details at the end of the presentation as well, so you guys obviously can reach out to me if you should have any questions at all. Okay, so I will jump right in, and when I jump right in, I'll talk first about what we're doing, obviously, for COVID. It's as I'm sure all of you have been impacted. It's affecting all of our students all over the world, and of course, it's one of the biggest factors for students, obviously, coming and studying. Okay, so I'm sure you guys will be aware that, of course, the borders are still technically shut for students. So what that means is that since COVID began and until the borders are open for our students, we've actually made some changes for our students and how we'll deliver our lessons. Okay, so this probably won't be news for you because most universities in Australia and New Zealand around the world have adapted to a lot of these changes, but it's just to kind of give you some information about what we've done. Okay, so essentially one of the strategies that we wanted to maintain, one of the focuses that we wanted to produce for the students, is we still want to deliver the same high quality education that they would expect if they were going to come and study with us in Australia face to face. Obviously, they can't do that, so we've transitioned to an online learning method. But the way that we deliver that method, we feel is the best for the students in the sense that all of our programs are still run almost exactly the same as they would be run in a face-to-face format, but we've just adapted that with online so that we're still delivering live sessions, for example. We still have that same support that students would typically expect from one of our programs if they're going to learn face-to-face. So all of the resources that we would typically make available for our students, our supportive learning environment, our academic guidance, the tutorial sessions, even our career support. Obviously, Ivy spoke about some of the things that we're more famous for in terms of supporting students develop their careers, going on to find work, helping them get those salaries, those big starting salaries. We will still be offering all of this in our programs if students decide to come and study with us, whilst obviously the borders are still shut. Okay, one of the other things we want to guarantee to our student is this smooth transition. Okay, so for the students that we have currently studying online with us now, obviously the curriculum that they're studying is actually the same curriculum that they would be studying in a face-to-face format. Okay, so once the borders do open for these students, obviously then they will make that seamless transition, and we have a plan in place for our students for when borders open. We'll support them to get their visas, we'll support them to make arrangements to come over, and then as they transition to come over and study, certainly with their education, with what they're studying, that transition will be seamless because the curriculum has not changed. Okay, and even the format that we deliver that curriculum will not change, so it will be hopefully we think it'll be a very easy transition for them. They'll just carry on with exactly where they stopped in terms of the online studies, and then they will carry on back to face-to-face. Okay, so a little bit more information about what we call a face-to-face virtual blended learning. So, and the reason I want to bring this up is because I know there's a few different university methods, and different universities have taken a slightly different approach. But one of the key things for us, and we think in terms of actually preserving the quality of education, is that we're still running all of our classes virtually face-to-face, if you like. That's to say that we're not pre-recording any of our content. So we're not just making like glorified YouTube videos that we upload and then students watch in their own time. We will be running live classes for students and have been running live classes for students since COVID kicked off, so that students will be able to log in. They will then complete the classes that they would typically have with the same group of students that they would actually be in a class with if they were going to be studying face-to-face. And so they will still actually have that almost that FaceTime, that one-to-one time with the teachers. Okay, so they'll have one teacher. Our classes are well known for being quite small. Typically, we only have between maybe 10, 12, 13 or so students in one of these sessions. And we keep that intimate size online so that our students, if they have questions, if they need any support, they'll be able to, whilst they're in, typically we actually conduct our classes in Zoom sessions. While they're in a Zoom session like this, they can just come off a mute, or they can raise their hand, or they can pop something in the chat. So if they have a question, they'll be able to get that question answered right there and then, just as if they were actually studying. Okay, so none of the lessons that we deliver are actually pre-recorded. Okay, some of the additional benefits of how we actually run online. Obviously, we want to leverage our resources as much as possible, but we do record all of our live sessions, and we expect our students to attend a certain number. It's around 80% of our classes as if they were actually studying with us on campus, but they'll actually be recorded and then they're actually put online, so onto our online platform. So if students do want to revisit them, maybe for revision, then they actually have the benefit of doing that. Okay. Similarly, all the resources that we would typically have, and I'll talk about some of those later on in the presentation, these will be made available for the student through the platform. Okay, so if they want to speak with one of our careers guidance counselors, they can do that. They just log in to our platform and they'll click on the section for careers guidance, and I'll see if I can send you guys out a video, like a demo of our platform later on, but they'll be able to book a time with one of our careers guidance counselors, and then obviously have a chat with them. If they need some extra tuition, which is completely free of charge with us at CSU, they'll be able to go online and book some of that. If they need to speak with one of our teachers outside of class times, they'll have our teacher contact details. They'll be able to do that as well. Okay, so this is the way that we feel is the best learning method for our students, and this is what is available for our students since 2020, and progressing right through until the borders open, which we hope will be, if not towards the end of this year, fingers crossed, once the vaccination programs have been rolled out, then we're hoping for at least 2022, when we feel that students will eventually be able to start coming back over again. But of course, all of this is
sorry, Luke.
Yep.
I think are you sharing screen right now? Because we can't see anything from your side.
Apologies. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I think my bad. So sorry about that.
No worries. Yes.
You guys can see now?
Yes. Great now.
Okay, great. So sorry about that. So yeah, so these are just the slides you guys missed. I covered all the information from speaking, so apologies. And then this is a little bit of information, obviously, that I just covered about the face-to-face virtual learning. Okay, so now I'll get back on track and actually talk a little bit about the centres that we have. So hopefully you guys will be familiar with Charles Sturt University, and hopefully you're familiar with our study centres. So the Charles Sturt University campuses are these ones here that you see, so Albury, Bathurst, Canberra, Wagga Wagga. So these are the bigger, more traditional university campuses, but these are not the ones I'm going to be focusing on today. Okay, so the ones I'm going to be focusing on are the ones that we run at Study Group. These are the Charles Sturt University Study Centres. Okay, so these are the 3 city-based locations in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. Okay, so we've selected these 3 cities because they're the 3 largest cities in Australia, and subsequently, obviously, they represent the best opportunities for students to make the most of their postgraduate work opportunities. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. Sorry, my laptop's being very, very slow. Here we go. Okay, so the 3 locations we have. So here you can actually see, this is Sydney. You can see Sydney Harbour Bridge and Sydney Opera House here. But all of our CBD, all of our 3 locations, so Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, are central city-based locations. Okay, so they're located right in the heart of the CBD. When students do eventually get to come over and visit our campuses, they're very central, very convenient, located right in the heart of the 3 cities, and they have everything there that their students would need to complete their studies. Okay, so all the facilities, all the support that we offer students, and obviously right now that's been updated to be available online. Okay, so here you can actually see, you can get an idea. So we have this one here on the right hand side of Sydney. On the left hand side we have Melbourne, and in the middle this one here is Brisbane. Okay, so these are actually the 3 city locations you can see with a sort of a map of each of the cities. Here is just a little bit of information. So we have our study center key staff. So Debbie and Azim, who oversee all of the centers, and then we have our key staff members here that oversee certain programs or certain areas. Okay. So one thing I wanted to share with you guys, I think this is quite important because most of the students we get are very focused on their career outcomes. But just a little graphic here that just shows you some of the most in-demand professions right now. And then obviously we've circled which ones typically, some of the more popular ones that students would come through after studying one of our programs at CSU, and then progressing on into these fields. Okay. So the focus at the Charles Sturt University Study Centres, we actually only focus on 3 main areas in terms of programs. And one of the reasons for this is obviously on the previous slide, you can see what we're doing is we're actually focusing on areas, high demand programs, so that students who are looking to come over and study in Australia are able to then find a job that's in demand, and then go on. Most of our students will typically leverage their 2 years post-study work visa. Okay, so when they finish studying with us, they'll then go into a role that's in high demand in Australia, and obviously make that return back on their investment in terms of maximizing their post-study work visa. Okay, so the first area we focus on is in our accounting programs. So we currently have 3 levels. So we have our bachelor, so our undergraduate program, Bachelor of Accounting. We have our graduate diploma program, and then we have our Master of Professional Accounting. Okay, so if you notice on screen, there is a 12 and a 16 subject program. There's the 12 subject masters and a 16 subject. So I won't go into full details here, but essentially the difference for these 2 programs depends on what undergraduate qualification student has. So typically whether it's either a 3-year undergraduate program or a 4-year undergraduate program, and then depending on whether those students have come from what we would determine to be either a Section 1 or a Section 2 university. Okay, so the thing I say to all of my students, all of my agents, is the best thing to do is just, if you have a student that's interested for any of our masters, this applies to all of our master's programs, the easiest thing to do is just to process or submit an application for the student into the 12 subject master, and then our admissions will assess the student, and if they're not eligible for the 12 subject masters, typically they will be eligible for the 16 subject masters. Okay, but the difference really is just for students depending on what qualifications they currently have, but in terms of the outcome for the student, they're almost exactly the same. Okay, the only difference will be that obviously a 16 subject student will just study slightly more subjects. Okay, but the value of the degree, the recognition of the degree for students is exactly the same. Okay, the only other big difference is that the 16 subject will be slightly more expensive, obviously, because they're studying more subjects, and typically they'll need to come through via our graduate diploma. Okay, so they'll need to do an extra year. Okay, but this is for students who just simply do not meet the entry requirements for the 12 subject. So it's an alternative entry option for students that don't meet this requirement. Okay, one last thing, very important and very popular with students, areas where Charles Sturt, where our programs are ranked 5 stars out of 5 stars in teaching quality, full-time employment. I'll talk a little bit more about this later on, along with graduate salary, the student support, and overall experience. Okay, so these are all areas where we rank 5 stars out of 5 stars, which is in the Good Universities Guide, which I think is obviously a very important selling point for lots of students. The last thing, this applies of course to all of our programs, but of course all of our accounting programs are fully accredited by CPA Australia. Okay, so if you have students that are looking, if they want to go later and become a chartered accountant in Australia, they absolutely can start with one of these programs, and then they can later register with CPA. They can complete the extra courses as required, and then obviously they can go on and get that, achieve that chartered status if students so desire. But definitely, these are fully accredited and a great starting place for students if they want to delve into a career in accounting. So the other type of program that we focus on are our business courses. Again, you can see all of the areas where we are ranked 5 stars. And we have a slightly wider selection of programs here, but you can see we have 2 main options under bachelor's programs. So we have a general Bachelor of Business Studies, which is almost like a pre-selected specialization or a major program for students. And then we have a more general Bachelor of Business where students would then go on and select from a number of specializations. Okay, so it could be things like strategic marketing, or it could be human resource management. There's a whole range. I think I have some slides with details later on. And of course, I'll share these with you so you have that information as well. Again, we have our graduate diploma program. So this is for our 16 subject master's students typically. And then we have two main types of master's programs. And we've recently added in a third master's program, which is actually new for 2021. I have some more information about that later on. But the main difference between these, so we have our MBA. You'll note that the 12 subject MBA only runs for 1.5 years. And we have students who apply for this program will also be assessed not just on their previous academic qualifications, but there are work requirements for this program as well. So students for the 12 subject MBA will need a certain level of work experience, professional work experience, but they also, very importantly, they will not be eligible for that 2-year post-study work visa. Okay, so if you have students interested in that, if they're looking to do an MBA, they will need to study for at least 2 years. Okay, so they have a couple of options. They can look at the slightly longer MBA, the 16 subject. This one does last for 2 years, and this one will give post-study work visa. Or alternatively, they could look at our Master of Commerce. Now, this program is actually very similar to the MBA. In fact, I think about 95% of the modules that they can study, the units that they can select, are exactly the same. But the main difference is really just that the designation of the degree will be different. Okay, so rather than being an MBA, it will of course be a Master of Commerce. But they can choose up to either 3 or 4 specializations, depending on whether they do the 12 or the 16 subject. Okay, and then finally we have our new program, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later on, the Master of Project Management and Leadership. Finally, the last sort of group of programs that we offer are our IT programs. Okay, so again, we have our bachelor program, we have our Bachelor of IT, we have our graduate diploma for our 16 subject master students, we have our MIT, our Master of Information Technology, which has a whole range of specializations, which I'll share a little bit more information about later on. But we also have this new program as well for students, which is the Diploma of IT. Okay, so this again will be available towards the end of this year. We've been rolling this out. We haven't been marketing it a huge amount just now. Ideally, we're waiting for our first cohort of students we want to run as a face-to-face. Okay, but it is a program that we have now approved. It is available, and as soon as borders open, then we will obviously be promoting this much more heavily for students. Okay, but this is another option. So the way that this will work, and I have a slide on this a bit later on again as well, but this works exactly like any IY1 or diploma program. So students will come in, they'll study for 1 year, and then they'll be able to progress straight into the 2nd and 3rd year of the Bachelor of IT. Okay. So here is a little bit more information about our Master of Project Management and Leadership. So it's a program that we developed that's aimed for professionals from technical backgrounds that are looking to make that transition into a more business-focused role. Okay, so it's similar to an MBA in that respect. So if you have students maybe who in the past have got maybe engineering degrees or IT degrees, but they're looking to maybe acquire some business acumen or become more commercially aware, or if they want to focus in project management, then this is a great program for that, because that will give them a much more cross-functional focus, and it will really build their soft skills, their skills around business, and allow them to make that transition from maybe like a technical expert into more of a commercial manager if they're looking to make that career shift. So here is just some key information. So this program is actually available now. We'll be running this either as an online program or when we obviously open our borders. We expect this obviously to take off a lot more, but you can see the fees for the program. So this is for one of our 12 subject masters, and obviously all of the key information, which is actually broadly in line with all of our other masters. Okay, so our entry requirements for all of our masters, whether it be academic, IELTS, are largely the same. Okay. Again, a little bit more information about our Diploma of IT. I won't go through this slide, obviously, because I've just shared it, but as I said before, it's a standard diploma program. Students will study for 1 year. The curriculum will actually be largely the same. There are some slight variations in how we deliver it. I think the class is a little bit smaller, and there's a bigger emphasis on support, as of course, the entry requirements into this are slightly lower than our undergraduate program. But for a student, the outcome will be exactly the same, and their progression route will almost be exactly the same as well. They'll study 8 subjects in year 1 for the diploma before getting 4 years worth of exemptions of their year 1 of their undergrad, meaning that they'll go straight into their 2nd year and then complete 2 more years of the Bachelor of IT. Okay, so the exact number of units will stay the same, but it gives our students who don't meet the undergraduate requirements slightly more flexibility. It gives our students more options. Okay. And then some other, so these have actually been around since last year, but just some additional specializations that we've introduced into our program to keep up with demand in the job market, and to support our students to find those careers in a shifting job focus. So data science, this one's actually been very, very popular. Here you can see some of the subject requirements. I won't go into full details on that. We have cybersecurity, which has also been very popular. Again, you can see some of the subjects that we offer for students that come and study our cybersecurity specialization. We offer a dual cybersecurity and network security specialization. So this is one where students can get a dual specialization under their MIT degree. And then just a list of other dual specializations that are totally possible under our Master of IT. Okay, so these are just some of the options that students have for our IT specializations right now if they wanted to come and study our Master of IT. And then finally, just a more general specialization list for our students who obviously want to come and study, if they want to make the most of skills that are in demand right now in Australia. Okay, so I have a few questions. I'll come back to them shortly. Let me blast through this. So I'll move now on to some of the key selling points for CSU. Okay, so these are some of the things, some of the reasons why students would choose us. Ivy mentioned earlier that some of the 2 biggest ones are around our graduate employment rates, which is in fact 87.5%, and then our starting salary, which is is the highest starting salary of the all Australian university average. But some of the other areas where we really focus on is on support. Okay, so this is a really big one. This applies to our face-to-face programs when the borders open, but this will also apply to our online programs as well. So if students want to come and study with us in July, for example, which we're planning to be online, they may later transition, or certainly they will transition to come and study with us face-to-face. But we offer a whole range of support for our students. Okay, so one of the biggest ones, which I touched base on already, is the small classes. So all of our classes are run in these very small, intimate classrooms. So all contact hours, and I'll go into a bit more detail on this later. We don't run our programs like traditional universities that might have students come and study a big lecture in a big lecture theatre, where there might be hundreds of other students. We actually put all of our students in these small seminar type style classrooms so that they always have this easy access to our teachers. Okay. In addition to these small classrooms, we have free academic support classes for students. So these are extra sessions that we run completely free of charge for students if they feel they need extra support. And these could be for a range of things. So it could be for the content itself. So for students studying, let's say they're doing one of our Master of IT programs, if they're studying, if they're really struggling with certain areas, maybe around networking, for example, we can run some additional sessions. But we also run learning skills as well. So these can be essay writing, things like referencing. We can actually give students advice and support on things like how to plan their timetable. So there's a whole range of these 3 classes that we run to support students. Okay. And then in addition to that, we also have free one-on-one sessions as well. So if students feel like they're really struggling, then they can actually have these one-on-one sessions with our support counselors and really get the support that they need to obviously complete their studies with us. So support is one of our biggest things. And to show you when we get students on to speak about this, one of the big things they talk about is the support that we offer. And they generally say that, we have the tools, We have the support to make our students succeed, and all they have to do is just make use of that. Okay. The next biggest thing is what Ivy and I were just talking about before. Okay, so you'll probably be aware that CSU is we're not a huge research-focused university. So because we don't conduct a huge amount of research, obviously, typically we don't appear very highly in the traditional league tables, so like the QS and the THE university rankings. But one of the things that we are very focused on is the career outcomes for our students. Okay, in fact, it's one of our biggest focuses. And because of all of the work that we do, I think someone put a question about the internships, which I'll get to, I think, in the next couple of slides. But there's a whole range of things that we do to support our students that come and study with us and actually help them find work and then go on and find salaries that are obviously much higher than the average starting salary in Australia. Okay, so our students enjoy the highest employment rate in Australia. And the terminology behind this is, so our students are finding gainful employment within 4 months of graduating from our program. And so gainful employment is students finding work that's relevant to their degree. Okay, so if we've got an IT graduate, if he's done one of our master's programs, he's actually going on and he's finding work within 4 months that's relevant to his degree. So he's Master of IT, okay? And same with if we have a Bachelor of Business student, they're going out and finding work within 4 months that's relevant to what they've been studying, okay? Now, the reason that we have such a high employment rate and our students then go on to enjoy one of the average starting salaries is because of all of the work that we do behind the scenes for our students, okay? So we spoke about the support, but there's a whole range of things that we do here, okay? So our internship program, we will run careers workshops throughout the year. We have something called a job readiness club. So this is where we'll support students to build their resume, build their LinkedIn, to help build their network. We'll do mock interviews with them so they can come and practice. We'll give them advice and feedback. They'll go away, they can come and do more mock interviews. So this is what we do to help students come, international students come from outside of Australia and teach them what they need to know about what Australian companies are expecting from Australian graduates, okay? I spoke about the LinkedIn network. We have a career hub. So this is a team of people that support our students, whether it's helping them find, what's what I'm looking for, job listings, preparing them for their job listings. But basically we have a team dedicated to supporting students to finding work, okay? And all of these are completely free services. We have our ambassador programs and we have our leadership programs as well. And then in addition to this as well, so the career workshops that we have, often we'll run things like careers fairs. So we have some great links with lots and lots of different companies in Australia. So we'll invite them down, they'll get to meet the students, students will get to meet them. And there's just a whole range of things that we do to support students, okay? So I'll talk about the internship now. I'll just flag up, let's see if I had any questions. So from Jenny, so is there the internship period in the courses? If yes, how long is it? Okay, so our internship program is 12 weeks long, as you guys can see on screen, so about 3 months. All of our internships actually take place at the end of our program. Okay, so these internships specific to this, so the students will finish their studies. When they finish their studies, or rather towards the end of their studies, usually in the second semester of their last year, they'll speak with our careers hub and they'll say, I would like one of these internship programs, okay? Now, I'm not allowed to say that it's a guaranteed internship program, but the students just need to submit their interest to apply for one of these internships, and then they need to complete their studies. And our careers hub guys will actually find our students one of these internship programs, okay? So there'll be a whole list of companies that are recruiting for internships. And typically, well, in any given year, there are more internships than we have students. So every student that expresses their interest for an internship will be able to apply for these. Now, there is a selection process from the internship. So, and especially for bigger companies like Google, PwC, that we've worked with in the past, they will typically have a selection process, and obviously they will select students. But what our students will typically do is they'll have a preference system, okay? So they might apply for 3, 4, 5 of our internships, and then they'll go through the selection process with each one of these companies, and then the company will select based on which students they think, you know, are most relevant for them. But typically all of our students will come away with at least one of the internships from their preference list. Okay, it will run for 12 weeks, and then at the end, I believe the majority of our students actually typically get a retention offer. So the company at the end of the internship will often actually ask the student if they want to then come and work full-time for that company. Okay, if the student doesn't get that, then of course they've still been able to apply what they've been learning, the learnings from their degree over this 12-week period, and then this will allow them then to go out with the support they've had from us in terms of preparing them to find work, go out and then find a job in Australia. Okay, the internship program is completely optional. So if students have already, and this is pretty common, students might already have a job lined up from one of our careers fairs, for example. They don't have to do this, okay? But if they don't have any work already, they can speak with our careers advisors, sign up for the internship, and it's a great way for them to get a foot in the door at the company, okay? So here is just some of the feedback from some of our previous students who have obviously come in and done one of our internships, and then obviously later gone on and then I think they carried on working for the company. A little bit of information about our leadership programs. Sorry, Ivy, did you say something? No? Okay.
Not from my end.
Okay, no worries at all. Okay, so then these are some of the leadership programs. So these are, again, completely voluntary, available for our students. And it's what we would call something like a resume filler. Okay, so this is a great opportunity for students whilst they're studying to get some leadership experience, to develop their soft skills, which are highly sought after in the Australian work market. And essentially what they'll do, so that obviously things like the Student Representative Committee, so these guys will be elected by the student body to represent the student body, and they might meet on a monthly or a quarterly basis. They might discuss any recommendations or any concerns that students have, and they'll essentially act as the representative voice of the students who liaise on a regular basis with our campus team, the leaders in CSU. Okay, these other leadership programs are quite similar in what the students do, but they have slightly different outcomes. Okay, so we have our step leaders, successful transition enhanced by peers. So these are almost all of these roles are like mentor roles. So typically we would recruit volunteers from our second or third year students, and they will almost be like mentors to our first year students. Okay, like I say, they're all completely optional, but it's a great way for our students to really formalize like a mentor program, and they can really get some great experience, put this on their resume, and then this will help them when they're looking for work. Okay. So the next slide I have is a little bit of information about how students will study. Just try to wrap up pretty quickly. Now I've got a few more slides, but I'll blast through these. One of the other very popular things with our students is actually how we structure our timetable. Okay, so every subject that a student will study, typically they'll study between 6 and 8 subjects in a year. They're given the flexibility to determine whether they want to study in either a 2 or a 3 trimester format, so they can spread those 6 or 8 subjects out over 2 or 3 semesters. And then each one of those subjects, they'll have 3 contact hours a week. So let's say one of our students is studying 3 subjects in a semester. So each one of those subjects will have 3 contact hours. We actually block those subject hours together. So students will then be able to select times where they'll have that 3-hour block. So we run our classes Monday to Friday. We have 3 sessions. We have a morning session 9 till 12. We have an afternoon session 1 till 4, and then we have an evening session 5 till 8. Okay, so students can select what time and what days they actually study. And because we block it together, obviously we'll give our students breaks in class, so they won't just be, working away for 3 hours solid. But it means that our students can really condense their timetable, and it's also much more easy for them to manage their timetable as well. Okay, so rather than having maybe 1 or 2 lectures on a Monday, that you might have 1 at 9 and then maybe 1 at 1, and then that's kind of spread out throughout the week, it allows us to offer our students a chance to compact their timetable. Okay, so most of our students will typically put all of their lessons across 2 or 3 days. So let's say we have a student, they've got 3 subjects. They might do 3 mornings, so they come in at 9 o'clock Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then for the rest of the week they're able to complete the rest of their self-study hours, complete any assignments they've got, And of course, if they're interested, make the most of things like their post-study work visa, working entitlements, so students can work on average 20 hours a week, but up to 40 hours a fortnight, and just manage their timetable much more easily, okay? So subject to availability, students can actually change their lesson times around as well. So if they've maybe done all mornings, Monday to Wednesday, but they've decided actually they've managed to find work, or they'd like to change it to maybe work evenings, if we have the spaces available in the classes, absolutely students can do that as well, okay? And students will just choose which classes they want during their orientation, and then if they want to change, they can just have a chat with either the teacher or one of our academic counselors, and they'll be able to support them do that, okay? So I'll try to blast through the rest because I think I've got quite a few slides left. But the main, so as I mentioned before, so obviously it's on a trimesterly basis. Students are assessed 3 main ways. There'll be things like exams, group work, rating assignments. Typically, each subject will have 1 or 2 exams at the end of each semester, which will usually account for around about 50% of the student's grade, okay? And then the remaining 50% will typically be from a range of essays or presentations or group work pieces, okay? So this slide just covers the information I was talking about in terms of how the students can structure their subject load across a year, okay? So there's flexibility for them to do that as well. Finally, the last thing, of course, is when students come and study with us, and this is still the case with our online programs as well, it's not all work, okay? We understand that students want to come and get a great education and then leverage that to then go on and find great work, but we want our students to obviously come in and enjoy studying with us, and we know that most of our students are coming over and living in Australia for the first time, so we really try to actually integrate our students into Australia. We help them to get those Australian experiences, and we do a whole range of things that are completely free for students, completely voluntary as well, but for students to come in and learn. Okay, so we'll do things like surf classes, fitness classes. We do trips to one of the CSU main campuses, so Wagga Wagga, Bathurst, Port Macquarie, for example. And typically when we do these trips, students will really see like Australian wildlife. Our other CSU campus locations are quite rural, so typically they'll see things like kangaroos and wallabies and things like this, because there will be around the campus. In the past, we've done ski trips for students, but we'll do a whole range of weekly activities for the students. Things like movie nights, we have our annual gala dinner, we have our awards night, just a whole range of things to really settle students in and kind of give them that experience that they want to come over to Australia. So these are just some pictures from some of those experiences. So some of the not work things, some of the fun stuff that we do for students. You can see some of the classes that we've done. Obviously, free swimmer classes. Lots of our students haven't swum before or haven't seen snow, things like this. So it's all things that we run for students, completely complimentary. This is from our gala dinner. So this is the end of the year awards dinner. So this is for our graduates, and then obviously for any students that have won any of our awards, any of our additional scholarships. Okay. Last thing, I won't go into a huge amount of detail on this because I'll share these slides with you. But our entry requirements you can see on screen here. So we have our academic qualifications. Obviously, these will vary from country to country. But if you have any questions, you can either find the entry requirements online, or you can just reach out to me directly. We have our English requirements below that. And again, we actually accept a whole range of PTE IELTS. At the moment, we're accepting things like Duolingo as well, in addition to that. Here you can see some of our conditional academic entry requirements for COVID. So if you have students, if they're unable to get, say, their final year transcripts, we can make provisions for students. We can make them an offer. They can accept that offer in the interim on, predicted grades or maybe the previous semester, for example. Okay. Similarly, we have an additional bunch of English language tests that we're offering students. Again, I'll send this out to you guys. And again, online, there's a full breakdown. You can see every academic qualification we accept, every English test that we accept also. We also made some changes to the eCoE process. So this one's a bit more important. There might be questions about this. Happy to answer them. Students have a couple of options. Okay, so they can actually, we're actually allowing students, if they want to start online, they can actually start and pay for any number of subjects. So if they want to just do one subject, for example, they can do that. To get the eCoE, there is a minimum number. I think they need to do 50%. So I think 3 or 4 subjects for students across the year, just to get started. One of the very important things for students is that if they get their eCoE and if they get their visa issued, they will actually start accumulating post-study work visa rights. Okay, so once they get that visa issued, from that moment, and from obviously when they begin the program, it will be as if they're studying on campus for the purposes of the post-study work visa. Okay, so if students are interested in post-study work visa, it's important that they get the eCoE when they start the program, especially if they're doing one of the master's programs, because obviously they'll need to make sure that they get enough time starting the program to get that post-study work visa when they finish. Finally, we have the pricing and the intake dates. Again, I won't go into full details on this, but I will send this out to you. Here, again, you see all of the pricing for our postgraduate programs, the duration, the intakes. And then finally is the scholarships that we have. But I have to tell you that so this is the scholarship that we had before, so up to $10,800 for students with a COVID relief bursary fund. So this is likely to change. I don't have the full details just yet. It's still being confirmed with CSU, but we think that we're likely to move to a format that's like a percentage, so say 10%, 15%, for students that will then persist across all of their years of study with us. Okay, so rather than just being like a first year only payment bursary, there'll actually be like a percentage discount that will apply across all years of study. Okay, so unfortunately we haven't confirmed this just yet, which I know is very frustrating, but we're hoping to get that finalized very, very soon. And as soon as we get details for that, then I will share that with you. Okay. One thing, obviously, I would like to just confirm is that we have what we call a visa refusal refund guarantee. So if we have a student, if you guys have a student, they apply, they come and study online with us, they start their studies. If at some point their visa gets refused after the application, as long as it's not the student's fault, so as long as they haven't committed any fraud or anything like that, then we will actually give them a full refund of their tuition fees. Okay, even if they've got 1 to 3 months into the program, we will kind of guarantee that if they get their visa refused through no fault of their own, then we will return all of their tuition fees. And then similarly, all of our students benefit from what we call our risk-free introductory period. Okay, so this is any student that starts with us within the first 21 days. If at any point they decide that online learning is not for them, then obviously, of course, then they can get a full refund or defer, no questions asked. Okay, they just need to start the program. Obviously, they'll make their initial payment. They'll need to decide within that first 21 days. And, you know, if it doesn't work for them, maybe their internet's not great, maybe the time zones don't quite work for them, absolutely fine. They'll still benefit from that 21-day risk-free period. Okay, so I'll wrap up there and just see if anyone else has any other questions. And feel free just to fire them in the chat. If you guys would rather ask me, also fine. I'll flash up my contact details here as well. So if you guys want to save my number, if you want to save my email, if you have any questions later on that you think about CSU, if you have any students, if you need any support, if you'd like me to share any materials, just feel free to contact me anytime. Okay. So I'll wait around to see if any questions come in.
All right, thank you, Luke. It's a very informative presentation from your side. Just before everyone popping their question, I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
So you mentioned about like there are some certain days, like 21 days trial for the student to study and see if studying online would be appropriate for them, and also if they can follow up with the curriculum. So what if they satisfy and they go on with the classes that they registered? At the end of the semester, if there's any fail class, is there any like like refund or letting the student retake the class in the future, or is there any solution for those issues?
Sorry, what were the issues?
Yes, so I mean, if the student they fail the class, right? So is there any refund or letting the student retake the class in the future if they can study online on sorry, if they can come to Australia and study in person?
Right. Sorry, I missed that bit where you said fell. Got you.
Because
That's a
I know
good
that
question,
for
actually.
like online studying is not for everyone. So some student would prefer to study online instead with the support from the instructors and tutor.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's part of the reason why the 21 days is there. So first thing I want to stress as well is that we still have the support for all of our students. So during that 21 days, students can try. Obviously, we'll be expecting them to log into 80% of the classes, so the Zoom classes, so that they keep that attendance up. And then from there, we will initially gauge how well they're doing. So one of the things we've done in the past is if we've seen that students have been struggling, then we might say to them as well that we think potentially that deferring might be an option for them. Okay, so definitely at any point for any reason within that 21 days, they can request for a full refund or they can defer, absolutely no problems at all. So about the failing part, so if a student, they do the 21 days and they think actually this is pretty good, and I will say that I think over 90% of the students that we've got for all of our programs have been impressed, have been satisfied with our online learning. They say, actually, this is pretty good. Zoom sessions are good, internet's okay. I like the structure. The curriculum's interesting. I'm going to stick with it. If they start struggling, firstly, there's a whole range of support, right? So as I mentioned about the campus programs, we have careers guidance counselors, we have academic guidance counselors, we do additional academic support classes for students. These are still happening for online, okay? So if we see that a student's really struggling, then the first thing we'll do is we'll reach out and we'll say, listen, we can see that you're struggling a little bit, so we would like to put you in for some of our additional support classes, and maybe we'll appoint like a one-on-one session with you to help boost it up, okay? So if that still doesn't help, then there have been a few students where we said, listen, and we think it's the online format, then what we'll do is we can actually, we can just defer them to the face-to-face session. We can work with students to do that, okay? With students, so just more generally when students fail on a sort of on a more campus basis, when we're back to that, so it's usually fine. Students can do resits. So we'll usually in the break between every trimester, there'll be options for students to redo their exams and things like that. Okay, so there's definitely options for students to do that. But I think the thing to highlight first is that that's very much a last resort, right? Like we would probably do maybe 3, 4, 5 things with students before they got to that point where they would need to resit. Okay.
That's great. That's great to hear. Yes, and another question that you mentioned, the internship would be what I get is that it will be at the end of the program,
Yeah.
or would it be during the program?
So the internship that I specifically referred to, this is like the study group, the 12-week internship. So these pretty much almost exclusively happen once the students have finished their studies. Okay. But students, there will be times when students will work with our careers guidance counselors, and they might maybe want to do an internship in between as well. So they happen. But the one that we talk about, the one that is, and like I said, I can't say it's a guaranteed internship, but the one where we will literally go out and find hundreds and hundreds of internships for all of our graduate students. This one will happen at the end of their studies. Okay, so that's the big one. That's the main one. But students have been known to, get internships. Yeah, for sure. So they can, and whether they find it themselves or whether they go to our careers guidance counselors and say, can you help me find like a mid-year one? They do happen as well. But the big 12-week one will always be at the end, once they finish their studies.
Is there any access for students to come to the career hub or like career support service after they graduate?
Sort of. So what they will do is they actually set up, when our students graduate, they set up like an alumni group, and they'll usually the way they'll do it is it will be like an amalgamation of things like maybe like Facebook and WhatsApp. And then they'll typically have like one of our careers guidance counselors will be based in there, and then they will kind of help support students, our alumni, when they finish. So that definitely happens. And they might have, they might do meetups and stuff, but generally what they try to do is they try to get students, so some of the alumni students, to almost act as like representatives, and then they might drive more of the social events, for example. But the careers guidance counselors will kind of be there to support and help building profile and the network, and if they have links to jobs and things like that, definitely, yeah.
Coordinator, kind of. Yes.
Yeah.
Last question from my side. Is there a minimum of units that they need to take per semester if they're studying online with CSU study centers?
Yeah, good question. So it will depend if they want the COE. Okay, so if they're happy, if they just want to try one online, for example, a student can absolutely do just one subject. That's absolutely fine. But to get the COE, I'll need to double check on this because there are a lot of changes, but I believe they need to do at least 3. Okay.
Okay.
And it will depend. Like the best advice I give will really depend on whether a student's doing a 2-year program or a 3-year program. If they're doing a 3-year program and have a bit more flexibility, you can say you could definitely try one. If it works out, then next semester you could do 3 to get the COE, get the visa, and then you'd still have plenty of time to get your post-study work visa. With the master students, obviously they don't have that luxury of like a barrier, so for them it's a little bit different. But yeah, it ultimately it depends. But if a student just wants to try, they could just do one. If they want to get their visa, which is recommended for their post-study work visa later on, then they just need to do the minimum to get the COE. I'll double check. I believe it's 3 subjects.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it from me. All the participants, if you guys have any question for Luke, please type in the chat box. So thank you so much for your very informative presentation today. I believe if anyone have any follow-up question, they will pop up to me or Chi, and then we will get back to them in the future. So Luke, you're based in Singapore, right, or in the UK?
Exactly right. Yeah. So I'm based here in Singapore. It's very hot at the moment. So yeah, the sun is very strong. But yeah, I think I'm maybe 1 hour ahead of anyone who's in Vietnam.
Yes.
But
yes.
I love questions. So thanks everyone who joined firstly, and I know I've probably just pummeled you with information for like a good solid 50 minutes. So it's a lot to take in, which I appreciate. I'll send the slides on to Ivy, and you can use these slides for absolutely anybody. Anyone can see these slides. So please feel free to distribute these, Ivy, and anyone who wants to share them with students, with parents, absolutely fine. Anytime you have any questions, I love helping guys. I love helping you guys. So just feel free to message me. No question is a silly question. Okay.
Thank you very much, Luke. I think that's pretty much it for today. We will send to you all the participants today the PPT and also the recording, so that you can feel free to share with your colleague who cannot make it today. Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Chi, for joining with Yes Education webinar today. And I shall see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.